Hey, it's Grady at Twin Creek Audio, back in the studio, and today I'm going to mix a rock track and try to get a really punchy mix going. I'm going to be using the ART TCS twin compressor system the same way that I did in my last video, that is as a mix bus compressor with a Radio Shack EQ on the detector loop for the sidechain of the compression circuit. So if you missed that video, check that out for more about using the ART TCS twin compressor system on the mix bus. Here's a look at some of the outboard gear we're using today. This bottom ART TCS twin compressor system unit is being used on the master bus of the console, and I'm using this in the exact same way as my last video, with this on the master bus using a Radio Shack 15 band EQ in the detector loop of the compressor. This is on the Mix VCA V3 voicing. Some people call those presets, but it's really more of a starting point because you still have all the adjustability of the threshold, ratio, attack, and release controls. This just gives you a good starting point. So I have this on the mix setting here. The lead vocal is going through the left-hand side of the top ART TCS, and I have it on the V3 vocal setting. This one is unique because this compressor has a VCA and an optical compressor. So this setting is sending the vocal through the optical compression first and then the VCA compression. And on this one I actually do have the tube circuit on, whereas I don't on the master bus compressor. The Symetrix CL-100 is being used on the kick drum today. I have the DS circuit switched on. The ratio is on the dial. It's not marked on these, but this is 2:1 down here, 20:1 here. We're right between them. We've got a relatively kind of a medium fast attack at 22, a little less than 22 milliseconds, and a pretty quick release. And of course this one has an input and output instead of the threshold. That's our kick drum sound. Through using the Symetrix 501 on the snare drum, you can see those settings. I've done several videos about this one, and I've done a video about the Symetrix CL-100, so you can check those out if you're interested in more about any of these units in particular. And of course the Urei LA-10 on bass guitar. This is one of my favorite compressors and probably my favorite compressor on bass guitar. A little bit of reverb is being provided courtesy of my Yamaha REV500. This is on the lead vocal and the background vocals. I used the large hall preset on this, but I've tweaked the reverb time to 1.7 seconds. The default is 30 milliseconds of pre-delay, so I've left that alone. And down here is the Radio Shack EQ that I have on the detector loop of the ART TCS compressor that you can't see now because I've tilted the camera down. So this EQ is on the detector loop. A lot of the SSL bus compressor type plugins have a high pass filter, and that's kind of what this is doing along with my hardware compressor. So that's the EQ curve that I have on the detector loop of the master bus, and I have this low cut engaged as well. Actually, I think it's connected to this side because the compressor is linked, and I think I have the left side, I accidentally connected it to the right side of the EQ. So I think you're going to see the signal over here on the right side of this. Is this why I can't have nice things? Oh, sorry. We're mixing this song. This is Shallow from my 13 Channels album. And I've got really cool stuff going on to make this mix punchy. Of course, I'm using the ART TCS twin compressor system. And I've got that in the VCA mix mode on the V3 knob, and just kind of tweak that to taste, using it at about a 1.7:1 ratio, so a pretty low ratio, and it works really well on the mix bus for a punchy rock track like this. I've also got the Symetrix CL-100 on the kick drum track, which is here on channel 1. It's usually where I put kick drum, and then the Symetrix 501 on the snare drum. The 501 is a really versatile compressor. It can go from something that's fairly mellow sounding for like an Americana style track. I'll use it on a snare drum for that style of music, and I'll also use it on a rock track like this for a snare drum that has, you know, a lot more of a punchy, attacky kind of a sound. I've got stereo toms here on these channels. I don't really have any compression or anything. I'm not doing much to these toms. They're panned kind of medium wide. To me, the width and the depth of the mix also contributes to the punchiness of the things that are right in the middle, like the kick and the snare and the bass guitar, when I get to that in a second. Then we've got overheads, stereo overheads, and we have a stereo room mic. These also contribute to the depth of the sound. The cymbals, I'm not compressing anything with these overheads. The overhead mics are being EQ'd a little bit. I've got a little bit of 7K added to the overheads and a little bit of 12K, and pulling out some 800 hertz from these overheads. There is no compression on the overheads. And the room mics, there's no EQ and no compression on those. I also have the high pass filter at 100 hertz on the console engaged on the overheads. The room mics, there is no EQ, no compression on these stereo room mics, and that's sounding really good like that. Then we have bass guitar. I'm using the Urei LA-10 on the bass guitar right here. I also have a little bit of EQ, but I'm sending this bass track out a pre-fader aux send to my Phatronics Reamper. And then I'm running the Reamper into a JHS modified Electro Harmonix Soul Food. And I'm using that to add some overdrive to the bass guitar. So that's going on. I have a little bit of low mids that I'm taking out of the bass. I'm adding a little bit of 700, between 700 and 1000, and adding some lows with the low shelf EQ here to the bass guitar. On the overdriven version of this bass that's going through that JHS Modded Soul Food, I'm bringing that back through a PreSonus MP20's instrument input, and then that's coming back to a line input on the console right here, so I can blend the overdriven bass guitar sound with the DI bass guitar sound here. In order to keep this from getting too messy, I have this overdriven bass high passed at 100 hertz, so we're not getting a lot of overdrive on the really low lows in the bass, and keeping those lows cleaner so it doesn't make everything sound crummy and it retains its punch. Then we got some cool electric guitars and stuff, and of course electric guitars are not exactly punchy as far as in the nature of the mix. The drums and the bass are our punch, but these guitars have some nice width, especially this stereo pair here. This comes in to accentuate this main guitar, and it's very wide. That width helps contribute to the punchiness of the mix because your ears are drawn to the sides, and it allows the punch to come from the center. At least that's the way I see it in my head. There's another electric guitar track here that comes in during kind of the bridge or coda section of the song, and then a lead guitar here. I don't remember what that is. I think this is nothing, so we'll turn that off. And I might be wrong and have to correct myself later. But this is a lead guitar, kind of a melody guitar track. And down here, in addition to our bass guitar with overdrive on this fader where we can blend that, we also have 3 vocal tracks, a lead vocal track, and then we have a stereo pair of channels here that are the backing vocals. I'm using my second ART TCS twin compressor system on the V3 vocal setting for the lead vocal. The background vocals were tracked with compression. They were tracked really hot through a mic preamp to add some saturation. And I believe I even added some phase or some univibe to these, but that's printed in the tracks here, and it sounds really cool. This blue fader here is the Yamaha REV500, the reverb return. I'm using that on mostly the background vocals and a little bit of it on the lead vocal, and that's on the Large Hall 1 preset. And I've tweaked that to have 30 milliseconds of pre-delay because I don't want the reverb to muddy up the vocals too much, so it's pre-delayed to keep it out of the way. So that's a pretty good description of most of the elements that are going into this mix, so let's hear what it sounds like now. That's really, really punchy. The ART TCS twin compressor system's doing a great job on the master bus, and the two Symetrix compressors on the kick and the snare are doing a great job as well. I'm going to play the kick and the snare with the two Symetrix compressors on both of them so you can hear what that sounds like, and then I'll bypass the compression on that kick and snare so you can get a sense of what those compressors are doing to this really punchy kick and snare sound that are already punchy in the first place. So those compressors sound really good on the kick and the snare. Of course, the Symetrix compressors are adding not only compression, but they're adding a little bit of saturation to the sound, and the console's adding something to it too. So you're getting a lot of saturation, so you get that really nice punchy vibe to the sound with a little bit of that analog color from both the console and from the two Symetrix compressors. There's not a whole lot of tom fills in this song, but they are really big sounding, and I forgot that I've added some of the Yamaha REV500 reverb to those toms, not to anything else in the kit. We're mainly relying on the room mic for the sound of the kit and the snare drum, but I did add some of that reverb to those toms just to give them a special place in the mix, because I like toms to really be featured, and there's not that many tom fills in this song. Let's check out the bass guitar now, and I'm going to vary this overdriven version of the bass guitar that I'm adding down here so you can hear what this bass track sounds like with and without the overdrive. I like it right about there, and I may pull it back during the middle section of the song when things kind of get a little slower and dreamier. May pull this back some, but I really like the tone I'm getting with that Phatronics Reamper and the JHS Modded Soul Food pedal. I've done a video about how to do this before, so I'll try to remember to put a link to that video, but it's here on the channel where I've used the Phatronics Reamper, and I think I used a Maxon Tube Screamer the last time, but I did the same thing with bass guitar, so check that out. I want to highlight a couple of things about the guitar tracks. They're not necessarily contributing directly to the punchiness of the mix, but this stereo guitar here is definitely contributing to the width, which kind of spreads the mix out and allows the punchiness to come through the middle. So let's hear what these three guitars sound like. So these guitars are working really nicely. You've got that main guitar right in the center, which is kind of punchy, especially when you combine it with the bass guitar, which is really reinforcing this main guitar for a lot of the song. And then you've got this extra wide guitar that comes in for for those sections to really widen the mix for those transitions. Next, there's a bit of a less intense section of the song, and we've got another kind of cleanish guitar that comes in and a guitar solo. Now this has some kind of phase on it, and that's why it's stereo. It was printed that way. I don't exactly remember what I did when I printed this, but that's a stereo guitar, and this is playing kind of some fills and melody lines and things. And then you've got this other guitar and still the main guitar, I think, too. So let's check that out. And then when you put these guitars together with everything else, including the vocals, which we haven't discussed yet, but we will in a second, you get this. So you actually end up with that melodic guitar part, this clean part, and the other guitar part that plays through the whole song, all playing during that section. It sounds really good together. And the drums are definitely really punchy. The bass is punchy. I'm not sure if I'm going to pull this back a little bit. I feel like I need to ride this overdriven bass guitar a little bit during that section. Everything else, including the vocals, is all sitting really nicely in the mix without having to do a whole lot to it. If anyone ever has any questions about any of the details in any of my videos, make sure to leave a comment. I try to answer all the comments to my videos and help people out when they need it. I attempt to show everything, so if I don't discuss it, make sure you look closely, because I'll show the settings on a compressor or a piece of equipment. Sometimes I may forget to actually call out the individual settings, or I'm skipping over things because I'm highlighting a particular thing. So always remember to ask questions in the comments, and I do my very best to answer every single one of those. I'm going to move on to these really unique sounding vocal tracks. Now these backing vocals especially were printed really hot through a mic preamp, one of my Cappy VP26s. The lead vocal I have running through my second ART TCS twin compressor system on the V3 vocal setting. So it is the optical compression followed by the VCA compression. I've used this ART TCS twin compressor system on a lot of vocal tracks, and I'll use it in the configuration with the optical compressor first followed by the VCA compressor. So let's hear these vocal tracks. Don't take this the wrong way. Don't take it sitting down, staring out the window. You'll miss it. So let's play this whole thing. I'm going to work with this overdriven bass and probably some of the other things during this mix to make it sound its best. So let's give it a try. I think I'm ready to try this. See if it sounds good, or at least good enough for the purposes of this video. But we If you noticed during the mix or any of the examples, there's only one guitar track through a lot of the song. And that does contribute to the punchiness of everything else because you don't have so many things. And it's also a pretty tight guitar track that's locked to the bass, which that makes it a little bit tricky because you want to be able to hear both of them. And I think kind of the scooped mids on the bass combined with a slightly different kind of overdrive blended into the bass track helped those two stand out from each other in the mix. So that all contributes to a very wide mix that's still very punchy. Make sure to keep the middle of your mix in mind when you're working on something like this. You need that punch in the middle and you need some width to the side because that draws your ears to the punchiness, or vice versa. I don't know, it gives it something to play off of, you know? That was a lot of fun and a pretty good mix. Incidentally, the song was Shallow from my 13 Channels album, which came out in 2017. So this is a new mix through the console using the same raw tracks as what's on the album, if you'd like to compare that. Those links are in the video description along with other links that help support this channel, so make sure to check all that out, as well as liking this video and subscribing to the Twin Creek Audio YouTube channel if you have not done so already. I very much appreciate all the new subscribers and appreciate everyone out there for watching the videos here on the channel. I hope each and every one of you out there has an excellent and wonderful day, night, evening, weekend, weekday, hour, minute, second, nanosecond. Whatever it is you're having, have a good one. And thanks so much for watching. What can we see? But we turn